Hello everyone, welcome to Puno, Peru, 12,500 feet above sea level and just on the banks of Lake Titicaca, which I don't believe you can see from this shot. I really couldn't get any shot with both me and the lake in it, so I put the lake in the intro roll you just saw. If you notice the lake in that's Lake Titicaca. So I'm here in Puno today because I'm heading to La Paz, the capital of Bolivia. It's 164 miles away, or 264 kilometers, and I'm going to be getting there by car. You can also get there by bus. That is the cheaper way to get there, but I'll explain why I'm not doing that. But before I get to that, what I'm doing in La Paz. So I don't have a lot of time in La Paz. It's a city I've always wanted to see, and there's one thing I do really want to see when I'm there. So obviously, see all the cool cultural stuff, all the stuff you have to see when you go somewhere. But something I really want to see that I think is interesting is the La Paz urban transit system, which I memorized the name of walking here, but I've already forgotten it, so I'm going to put it there. Now, this transit system is different from most others. So most cities will usually build an underground metro system, or an overground metro system, or a light rail system, etc. No, La Paz approached this differently. So La Paz neighbors El Alto, which is the second biggest city in Bolivia, and La Paz is actually the third biggest city in Bolivia. Fun fact, Santa Cruz is the first. People were having a tough time getting between the two cities. They couldn't really build a metro because of the very elevation, so they thought, you know what, cable car system. They have 10 cable car lines arranged to get you around La Paz and El Alto. I'll put the map on the screen right now. Super cool. I haven't really seen that anywhere else. Obviously there's smaller cable car systems in some cities, but I've never seen one that's that vast. And if you know of one that is that vast and I'm just completely unaware of world cable car systems, please let me know in the comments. But that's what I'm hoping to do in La Paz today. However, issue. I have to enter Bolivia. Why is that a problem? Because, as you've all probably figured out, I'm American, and I have an American passport that I travel with. However, Americans need a $160 visa to enter Bolivia. That is expensive. So, instead of doing that, I'm going to use my other passport, my British passport, that doesn't require a visa to enter Bolivia. However, it's not that easy to just do that. Countries don't like it when you enter using a passport that has no record of you being in the country you just came from, because I entered Peru on my American one. So, I might have a fun little mishap at the Bolivian border today. That's the big hiccup here. And that's why I'm not taking a bus, because I've been on buses in South America before, where when you reach a border, the border guards already have the passenger manifest with nationality on them. And I don't want to get to this border and then say, okay, you in from the United States, pay your $160 visa, and me say, no, they spelled kingdom wrong. I'm actually from the United Kingdom, not the United States, and let them have fun with that. So taking a car service, which in the end, as long as I don't end up paying for the visa, is cheaper than taking the bus and paying for an American visa. If I do take this car service and they notice that I switch the passports out to try to not pay a visa, then this will be wildly expensive and completely pointless, and yeah. To get from Puno to La Paz, most buses travel this route, entering Bolivia at the town of Copacabana. However, the car service I was taking uses this alternate route, entering Bolivia at the town of Desaguadero. The drive was supposed to take around 5 hours, and as I mentioned, covered 164 miles, or 264 kilometers. Also, an additional bit of relevant information, my friend who was with me in the Panama video, the friend who was run off the road, was still with me in Peru.
and was also planning to do the passport switcheroo strategy to get out of paying the visa, as they are also a dual citizen. Now, I didn't mention this in the introduction because I didn't feel it was relevant, and I didn't want to complicate things by mentioning a second person who would be playing no role in the video. However, as you can probably tell as you've seen the name of this video, things do in fact get complicated. So, as the chaos sort of ensues, there are a few moments where my friend talks to me because they don't realize I'm recording and we have a brief conversation. I felt those scenes were relevant, so I've left them in, but in order to respect them not wanting to be in the videos, I've muted their voice and replaced it with these white subtitles you see on the screen. So with that, back to the action.
One thing that's interesting, which I've noticed walking around this town, is there are a lot of these signs, which definitely have to do with the events, I'm going to call them events, that occurred here in Peru at the beginning of this year, 2023, and the end of last year. It's always interesting to see stuff like that in person. Packing up to leave right now, heading out in a second, and I thought it would actually be worth mentioning something. The other week I mentioned to my friend that I was going to do this, the whole switching passports at the Bolivian border thing, and she mentioned she actually had a friend with an American and a British passport who tried switching between them to enter Bolivia from Chile, and the guards realized he was doing that, got aggressive with him, he started recording, and eventually was just able to pay a bribe. But hoping that doesn't happen. All right, heading out. Let's go. Throw that on top of there. Go. All right, here we are, Peruvian border.
Peru's border control building had multiple people sitting behind one large desk processing people coming in and out of the country. My friend and I were instructed to approach different agents, so I confidently approached the desk with my US passport in hand and answered the typical questions. But then my heart sank when the border officer stamped my passport. See, Peru hadn't stamped our passports when we entered the country, so we assumed, granted it is a very bold assumption, that they wouldn't stamp our passports when we exited. Thus, now, we knew we'd be walking into trouble on the Bolivian side if they decided to look for a Peruvian exit stamp, because our exit stamps would be in the passports that we don't want them to know we have.
Okay. Guy at Peruvian Customs said, you need visa to enter Bolivia. I said, yes. Just left on my American. So, yeah. We'll see what happens. Technically in Bolivia now, they haven't actually cleared customs. Aquí?
Bolivia's border control building was set up differently than Peru's. Instead of multiple people behind a large desk processing everyone, there was just one border agent sitting in an office who was responsible for processing all the people coming in and out of the country. Thus, my friend and I had to approach the agent together. I handed over my British passport, which they were happy to take, right up until they couldn't find the Peruvian exit stamp. Unfortunately, I then had to explain to them that our Peruvian exit stamps were in our US passports, which they did not love. They told us we'd have to get the visa. I tried arguing that our other citizenships allow us to enter Bolivia visa-free, but they emphasized that you have to enter Bolivia with the passport you used to leave Peru. So we thought, okay, we tried, let's just suck it up and get the visa. Turns out it's not that easy. We needed to have the following paper documents with us in order to get the visa: a 2x2 passport-sized photograph, valid passport with at least 6 months of validity. We both had 2 of those, so we were fine there. Copy of the hotel reservation or letter from friends or family indicating the address. Invoices of the last 3 months of basic services, water, electricity, telephone, that are in your name. Round-trip ticket or copy of the travel itinerary. And an economic solvency test, which is just a bank statement that proves you have enough money to get by while you're in Bolivia. Now, needing all these documents is probably wildly obvious to anyone who's had to apply for a visa before. However, I have never had to go through that process and assumed that a visa on arrival would be a fairly simple thing to acquire. But as you can see, it was not. We were not prepared for that. So we rejoined the action as we are realizing that we really have no way of acquiring these documents that we need to show them.
What do we do? I don't think we do. On the phone now with the company that we booked this ride to La Paz with, because it's looking like we're just gonna have to go back, which is awful because I don't know. This is beyond worst case scenario. So now we face a second challenge. Going back to Peru, we're now going to be entering without a stamp from Bolivia. I don't have any words to describe how I feel about this. It's so very long and worthwhile visit to Bolivia. And now the walk of shame back to Peru. Here we go. We need to show them a Bolivian stamp. We don't have that. I don't know any other way to react to this. U.S. Embassy Lima is about to get a really interesting call. All right. We are now heading back to Bolivia again because we talked to the guy who runs the car company. He said we should go back to Bolivia and get paperwork from them that says they've kicked us out of the country. And that's why we don't have exit stamps. Awesome day. Wonderful landscape there. The border guard has taken our American passports and gone off into another room. Good sign. It's an incredibly good thing. It's an incredibly good thing we didn't take a bus, because the bus would have just left us here. Granted, we are currently stuck here, but we at least have a ride back. I have no idea how we would get anywhere if the bus left us here. Alright, we received our papers saying we were denied entry to Bolivia, and we're going to present them to Peruvian Border Patrol and hopefully get back into Peru. All right, we've made it back into Peru. thankfully. And we're gonna head back to Puno and figure out what we do from here. Because I absolutely no idea what to do. We're gonna check flights, hotels, everything to figure out what's happening. We've made it back to Puno and we figured out what the plan is. Basically, we were going to fly from La Paz to Asuncion tomorrow, and then 6 hours later fly from Asuncion to Rio. And at this point, sorry, I'm out of breath because the elevation. I'm going a bit of an incline. At this point, we've cut our losses and we've got a flight from Juliaca, which is the Puno area, tomorrow morning to Lima, which then goes from Lima to Sao Paulo, and then from Sao Paulo to Rio. Getting to Rio a day early at 10:45 at night, because at this point we can't be bothered. Yeah, I imagine I've got something to add on at the end here, but if not, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, just to recap the rather large scale of this whoopsie, on an effort to save $160, we lost our accommodation in Bolivia, our flight to Paraguay, our accommodation in Paraguay, and our flight to Brazil. Then we had to make all these new bookings in order to do our amended plan. Those bookings included an extra night of accommodation in Peru, a new flight to Brazil, and an extra night of accommodation in Brazil because we'd now be arriving on the day we were supposed to be in Paraguay. So, all around, a pretty expensive endeavor just to try to save $160. So, if you are an American with multiple passports looking to travel to Bolivia, I would recommend just paying for the visa. And with that, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.